Welcome back to Birds of a Feather Talk Together. This week we are talking about a bird that is near and dear to Amanda and I, the black-billed magpie. These super pretty but also rambunctious birds are native to where Amanda and I used to live and also where Shannon grew up. They are very social and also very smart. We talk about how they can bully cats, their relationship with humans, and also how they have funerals when a magpie nearby dies. They're super fascinating, so I think you're going to enjoy this one. This week it's John, Shannon, Amanda, and I discussing the black-billed magpie. Okay, go grab your binoculars and let's get into it. Well, thanks, John. I appreciate that.
Awesome.
Yeah. Well, should we get into the black-billed magpie then?
Let's get into the black-billed magpie.
Yeah.
So when Amanda and I lived in Steamboat, Colorado, there were so many black-billed magpies, and they were one of our favorite birds, and we lived there, and we'd see them kind of everywhere. And you kind of get used to seeing them, but they really are like a pretty exotic-looking bird, and they're really, really pretty. Yeah. And we have noticed like two different stories that have like stuck with us. And the first one was years ago, kind of when we were first, when we were living in Steamboat, and we heard a bunch of commotion. This was on like a Saturday morning, and Amanda's apartment was on like a second-story apartment. We look out the window, and there's all these magpies and all these trees. There's a dozen of them just making a ton of noise, and there's a cat down in the middle of the grass, and these things are just dive bombing this cat, and the cat is like crouched down, and it like looked up, and it looked at Amanda and I like up in the window, like made eye contact, like help me. And these birds were totally.
I'm hoping you didn't help it.
No,
we didn't.
we didn't.
I have zero sympathy for an outdoor
No, we didn't
cat.
do anything.
We just wanted to see what played out.
Yeah. But they literally surrounded this thing, and they were just harassing the cat. And I mean, it was like we joked that it was the bird wars. We were like, it sounds like a bird war.
Maybe I
out
have
there.
zero sympathy for the owner
Of the cat.
of the outdoor cat.
Yeah,
The cat
yeah.
I'll have sympathy for because it did not choose to
True.
Yeah.
to do that.
Well, I think the cat survived.
Yeah.
We eventually looked, and the cat
He
made
was
its way
okay.
out of there. But we couldn't believe just how bold they were.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
And then just this past, I don't know, a few months ago when we went back, there was this park that we went to, and we saw this cat that was just like laying out in the sun. It was just an outdoor cat that was just by itself, and we saw this magpie fly down and like literally stand next to the cat, and they're so like stocky and bold the way they kind of strut around, and it walked right up to this cat and was like squawking at it, and the cat kind of got up and it like bullied the cat and literally like chased the cat away. And so we watched this thing just like kind of bully the cat.
They do that
And
with
so-
owls.
Oh,
wow.
That's
Things
crazy.
like that. They
Oh.
are
So one thing you pointed out is that you saw a group of them,
Mm-hmm.
and another part of their biology, which is really interesting, is that they live in family groups and they're helpers, and that's been studied by a lot of behavioral people over the years.
Oh, okay.
Very
Yeah, so
cool.
they're very social. They're members of the Corvidae, so they're relatives of crows and ravens and jays, and I love the fact that you pointed out that where they occur, they tend to be pretty common, and they're adaptable. They've moved into urban areas pretty well in lots of places in the West, and they don't occur in Arizona where I grew up. And so I remember it was one of those birds where I would look through the bird books, and see a picture of a magpie and go, wow, how cool would it be to see something like that?
Yeah.
And so the first time you see them, it's like, that's one of the birds that I always think of when we drive west.
yeah.
I'm always looking out the window, hoping to see the first magpies.
Yeah.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, and they have those long tails. I mean, they're just really pretty looking. And then, the coloring on their wings when you actually see them in flight, too, is really striking. Like, they're just a really pretty bird. So,
Yeah.
I'm not sure I'd like them if they were grouping themselves around my house
oh,
because
yeah.
they are extraordinarily loud and
They are.
noisy.
Yes.
My
Yeah.
mom is not so fond
Oh,
Yeah.
of magpies.
Yeah.
I was going to say vocalization wise, they've got nothing going for them.
yeah.
Except the repetitive nature of
Yeah.
their constant desire to keep making sounds
Yes.
Yeah.
of all sorts.
Yeah.
So they are pesty like that.
Yeah.
And I love the fact that, their name is Pica Hudsonia, and they've been fairly recently separated from the European magpies, but
Which look very similar.
very similar.
Mm.
There are
Yeah.
actually now multiple species, I think, across Asia.
Okay.
but they're all. If you looked at them, you would go, well, that's a black-billed magpie.
Oh, okay.
Oh, yeah.
There are genetic distinctiveness characteristics that we know of now, but that I always have to look up the word, right? So pica in Spanish means a little bit of this and a little bit of that.
Oh.
And it's a Latin word for a bird that is constantly gathering things and curious, which is completely describes them. So I think that's funny. And then a medical condition was named after them. And pica is a condition where whoever has it eats non-food items obsessively. They can't stop, whether that's pencils or toy trucks or buttons or whatever.
Or paint. I
Whatever,
feel like I've seen
paint,
some of those shows.
Yeah,
where...
well, there was a Law and Order that had that on it.
Oh.
The kid ate cars that his dad had brought home from China that had lead paint in them, and it had caused brain damage, and they figured it out because of him. He ate a pencil on the witness stand after he had killed somebody anyways. But it's a true... I watch a lot of Law and Order. I do.
Not too many birds in there.
Yes.
No, maybe not. There are birds in New York City, though.
But it's
You hear birds in...
so magpies tend to eat inanimate.
No, but they eat everything.
Everything.
They're
Okay.
indiscriminate in how they behave in that way.
A little of this and a little of that.
Exactly. They're all over the place.
Yeah.
Little busybodies.
Yeah.
Yeah, they would really like gang up like when you, I don't know, but we both lived in like apartments when we were out there. So there's, big parking lots, and they would just be all over the parking lots by the dumpsters.
Yes.
Like they're very social and bold and like to be around. There's no like you'd walk right up and they wouldn't even care that you're there.
No.
I always wonder in those situations. I mean, I feel like in the wild they're eating various large insects and probably a few lizards and things if they find them. And then around parking lots, it's probably French fries and stuff like that. But I, one thing that I don't know is how much anybody's ever assessed what that means to the overall health of being a magpie, for instance.
Mm-hmm.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah.
Well, I saw that they've always kind of like had associations with people. Like there was something that I saw that said historical records of the American West indicate that black-billed magpies have been associates of people for a long time. They'd frequently follow hunting parties of Plains Indians and feed on leftovers from bison kills. And then Lewis and Clark said magpies would enter their tents to steal food. So it seems like it's been part of their...
I mean, they're corvids. We've talked about them before, have very high IQs, even for humans. They have high IQs, kind of, period. And, all of that is pretty ingenious to follow people and go into a tent when people are eating that.
Exactly.
And to be unafraid. I mean, that's kind of one of the things about corvids in general is that they are pretty unafraid in how they behave.
I'd almost call it like, I think what we were talking about just previously about their opportunism, their willingness to sort of, they're almost by definition going to look around. So probably before humans were there, they were following around cave bears and things like that.
Bison is a big thing that they followed. That's influenced their distributions, the loss of bison.
But and a lot of that may have been they were getting insects out of the dung that the bison put out.
Yeah.
And so
I mean, they pick that stuff off of these big mammals, but they don't always eat it. They do eat some of it, and they cache other things, just the way you see jays and other crows caching things. Well, they cache the insects that they're picking off of the fur of these big mammals, which is interesting. Saving it for a rainy day, I guess. I don't know. And then I had to look up a new word. Well, not a new word, but a word I didn't know the origins of, and that is scapulars. Do you know that, the origins of that word?
No, I don't.
So I looked at it and I'm like, who knows what a scapular is? Why do we use that word? And so that's the patch of feathers that kind of looks like the shoulder of a bird, even though that's not exactly what it is. But in the case of these magpies, they're white. And so then I had to go look up what a scapular was. And it's a religious garment that is suspended from the shoulders. And it reminds the wearers to have a Christian life. And so they can be, if they're in the true religious thing, they're larger. So these fairly large. And if you look at pictures of monks and stuff, you'll see often they have these large things. They're tied together by a piece of fabric, and then they hang down from the arms. But if you're in the more secular part of that devotional, so these are devotional scapulars, and these are pretty small pieces of cloth, rectangles that are held off the shoulders by, again, connected by a piece of fabric. And so, I mean, that's where the word came from. And I had no idea. I just looked at it and I thought, people are not going to know what a scapula necessarily what
cool.
a scapular is.
Yeah.
So they occur in Europe, throughout Europe commonly too. And so I'm guessing that it wouldn't surprise me to actually say that what came first was actually the magpies and these white shoulders, and people thought, hey, that would look cool.
Yeah. Yeah, that's cool.
Yeah.
Yeah. I was thinking, John, what you were saying about the roadrunner using the tail as like a rudder. I feel like the magpie has a really long tail too.
And it's interesting because they're particularly in the old world. So in the new world, there's two species in the genus Pica that Shannon was talking about. There's black-billed magpie and yellow-billed magpie, which is curious because it's got a yellow bill and it's got a very small distribution in California. But in the old world, there are a whole bunch of magpies that have long tails. And coming back to the connection with roadrunners, some of the cuckoos have long tails that they use. But it's not clear to me what the advantage is, because one of the things it does is in flight, at least, is magpies are actually pretty slow flyers. They're not going to pursue something and track it down, except for the fact that they've got these bills and groups of birds that can go around and harass cats, as we were talking about, for instance. But they're not fast, and so it's interesting to think about why that tail is so prominent across members of that group. So, for instance, it's really different than what you would see in crows or ravens, which are flying a lot higher than a magpie ever would. So that's the other thing. Magpies basically go tree to tree. They're really very rarely getting up high in the air column at all.
Yeah, they're non-migratory too, so they don't take big treks across geography.
There was one up in Wisconsin, I think, for a few days last fall.
Oh,
No
really?
way.
Oh.
We didn't go see it.
No.
That's crazy.
Our graduate students went and saw it.
Really?
That's crazy.
That'd be cool to go see.
Yeah.
Yeah. So
Do they think it flew there?
Yeah. I mean, but that's a really good question, because you often wonder sometimes in those situations, and yet I probably did.
That's crazy.
Wow.
That's crazy.
Well, youngsters can take off sometimes.
Or get confused sometimes.
Or get confused.
Okay.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So that could be what causes some of these vagrant records.
Okay.
But there's so I've started having been to Bermuda and realizing like how many birds actually make it across the ocean when they get out there to Bermuda. I'm guessing black-billed magpie has never made it out there.
Oh, yeah.
Unless people
It may never will. Yeah, unless people brought it. So coming back.
Yeah.
Let's just say my mom's never bringing a magpie
She's not
to her island. That is not going to happen. She's not so fond of the jays either.
So, Shannon, did you grow up with magpies around? Yeah.
Nice.
What were your thoughts of them growing up? Were they annoying, or were they?
I didn't know anything about birds growing up.
Yeah. Okay.
I paid attention kind of, but not in any kind of way that I think of them now. I never knew anybody who watched birds growing up. I didn't even know people who had undergraduate degrees growing up, so I didn't have any frame of reference for biology at all. I knew there were ducks. I mean, you know a little bit about diversity, but I never really thought about it.
Oh, yeah.
In that way.
So you should correct me if I'm wrong on this, but one of the other things about, you were talking about seeing them in Colorado, is they're kind of an open country bird.
Yeah.
And so when you would start seeing them, wouldn't necessarily be right in trail, but maybe just down the river a little bit as it opens up.
Or on the way to Spokane was the most common place once we would cross the border.
And so they're definitely, I mean, up in the mountains, you're going to see ravens and there are crows down in the valleys. But then when you get out into the open lands is when you start seeing magpies.
Okay. That's interesting because where we see them in Steamboat, that's like in the Yampa Valley. Yeah. So it's like not up really high. It's more kind of like down in the valley. So that kind of makes sense for where.
Right. They're not up, like way up.
Yeah.
So even though we're teasing them, these magpies, I actually felt sorry for them once I realized some of the things that humans have done, things I didn't know. And poisoning coyotes in the West are a huge political issue. You guys probably experienced that in Colorado, but this is this fight against people who have ranches against coyotes, that the ranchers are worried about the coyotes killing their animals. And this has been going on for, I don't know, millennia. And there have been reintroduction programs. But before that, people were thinking that way. They wanted to eradicate the coyotes and succeeded in a lot of places. But they would put out, so they used poison bait for the coyotes, but the magpies annoyed them as well. And so they put out tiny grains with the poison in it, and it killed magpies, and their populations crashed the places where they were around the cattle and other things.
Just because they didn't like them?
Yeah.
Oh, gosh.
Yeah. Oh. So they were kind of bycatch of the fact that we don't even want memories of. Yeah, I don't even know exactly what the deal was, but seemed kind of a little bit over the top.
Yeah.
Fairly heartless.
Yeah. Well, I did see that on that topic of magpies dying, that they have funerals.
Apparently they do.
Yeah, so again, corvids are really interesting with respect to those kinds of behaviors. So crows will come in after an individual, something happens to them and they die, and they'll come in and make very different vocalizations. And
I didn't know.
So I think with magpies, some of it is also going to be driven by the fact that they do have these family groups, and so they may actually have. It's much. We think of it as a dead bird, and in that case, it's a dead bird with some ancestry or relationship to the birds that are coming in around it too.
Oh wow.
Yeah.
Oh, I didn't think about it like that.
Yeah, no, I mean, until you said it, I hadn't thought about it either. But it's almost certainly true.
Yeah. Wow.
So, John, just to say that again, you're saying they know that the bird that's passed away is part of their family?
Well, I think so. I could imagine a couple things. Yeah, it could be part of the family. It could be part of the neighboring group, which they probably also know and could have even some relationships with. I mean, it's just, that these are very social birds, and so.
I mean, they almost certainly have the capacity to recognize other individuals as distinctive individuals, whether that's from some aspect of their morphology, their plumage or behavior, whatever.
I'm fascinated by, because magpies look like magpies to me.
Right.
Well,
and
they wouldn't if you looked at them closely. Well, humans look like humans to them, too.
That's true. Yeah. We all look the same, I'm sure.
You and I don't look alike.
Have you asked a magpie? I don't know. They also have.
That's an interesting point, because in that sense, they have done.
They do recognize people,
individuals for sure.
They do. They absolutely do recognize different people. But they also have really interesting mating behaviors.
Oh, really?
We talk about this a lot. This show sometimes goes beyond the G. I don't know if this is PG or further down that pathway. But they, I have to read this quote. Burkhead says that males are remarkably randy, but females are choosy. So in their fertile periods, the females advertised to males by begging. And so there's all this competition for males. The females are competing for males too. So there's a lot of extra pair copulations and a lot of mate guarding that happens. So a male will try to guard his female, but she's sneaking off and copulating with other birds that are in the neighborhood.
Okay.
And so there's a lot of extra pair paternity in the nests of these birds.
So that's what all that noise is? That's what they're yapping about?
It goes against my family group concept, or at least makes it a lot more complex. And I think, again, they're very different than, say, crows, where you can see roosts in the winter of crows in the hundreds. Magpies would never do that. They're sort of, because they're residents, they're kind of spread across the landscape, and yet there's all that
But they do
interaction going on.
They do spend a significant amount of time in fairly large groups, like 20 or 30 at a time.
Yeah, I guess you can see. Yeah.
Wow.
Yeah.
Wow.
And I think they breed fairly closely together. They're
I
not-
think
they're
the
not
groups
super-
are definitely, they can be fairly. Yeah, I agree with.
So it's pretty funny.
That's awesome.
Well, I think we're kind of getting close on time here for black-billed magpies. Is there anything else black-billed magpie we want to chat about? Or should
They're
we-
often thought of as vermin, but
Oh.
apparently, unlike the bird we just talked about, they are not very good at cleaning their nests, and so their nests have tons of parasites in them.
Oh, okay.
Oh.
So they're not eating the poop sacks of their birds and taking away all the parasites and stuff. So their
Okay.
nests are kind of nasty.
Okay.
So there we go.
Yeah.
That sounds about right.
Yeah,
I think.
I think that makes sense to me.
So,
Yeah.
but have you ever seen a bad-looking magpie?
No, they're
Yeah.
so pretty.
Yeah, they
Yeah,
are. Yeah.
That's
Yeah, but they also have brood reduction. So
what's
I don't know,
that?
beauty's in the eye of the beholder. They kill their own
Oh,
at times.
Like
Because
adults too? Like they'll kill other adults, you mean? Or just
No,
young?
mostly young.
wait. So is it because they're unattractive?
You'd have to ask them. I doubt
I
it.
thought that's where
It's
you were
probably-
going.
It's probably because it's not an uncommon strategy to lay more eggs than babies you can feed.
Oh, okay.
And so sometimes if there's a lot of food in that year, you can feed 4 babies, but sometimes there's not. So you have to look in the nest and say, okay, who's out of here,
Oh, gosh.
and tip it out, not feed it. I know that sounds horrible.
I think that makes sense. I'm just kidding. I'm just kidding.
Sleep with
we don't
one
have
eye.
kids.
Yeah.
I'm joking.
Yeah, the economy's not great. And
Yeah.
This
No,
one's
no.
Can't afford all 4 of you.
yeah.
One of you's going on the open market.
All right. Well, we do have one mailbag question this week, and I think this is leaning kind of a little more in the PG category as well. This is Rob from Westfield, Indiana, and Rob says, "I learned on Jeopardy recently that wombats poop in cube shapes. This got me thinking about bird poop. Do all birds poop in liquid? Why is it that way? Also, isn't the wombat thing so weird?"
Yes, absolutely yes. If you Google those square poops, it's
Did you read
that
about
was-
why that happens?
I didn't read about why. I
No.
They
Googled to
have
make sure it was...
super long intestines
Oh.
that have muscles intermittently at the beginning and the end. So they squeeze every bit of moisture out
Oh.
and food and nutrients out of their food, and it takes them a really long time to digest their food. So it goes really slowly out.
you're
and
not
it's
getting close to explaining
It's
why it's
constricting
cube-shaped.
it because of the way the muscles work. It's constricting it as it goes down, and then by the end, the muscles have made it cube-like as it
Okay.
squished it to suck out to get all the water out.
Like rabbit poop is round.
But rabbits don't do what. Look it up. Rabbits don't do that.
I'm
There's
still
pictures. It's
I know there are pictures. I'm just understanding that geometry makes no biological.
It's like at
It
the
would if you-
junkyard where they squish the car from this direction
Yeah.
and that
Well,
That's
direction and then
exactly
this
what.
direction.
That's exactly what the bands of muscles are doing,
Okay.
John.
Just
no
RJ.
bands of. There's a difference between bands of muscles and two big pieces of metal coming together versus
It's not. It's the same thing. If you're squishing it from the top and squishing it from the side because you want to get out every
evolution
Be quiet.
shouldn't work on squares, especially when it comes to poop.
And I wonder
Now,
if the person got that right on Jeopardy. Do people know this?
I don't know.
Oh, he has to tell
Okay.
I
us.
know everything on
Yeah.
Jeopardy.
So his question was about bird poop, though.
I got distracted.
But it's but bird poop is really different than mammals, in part because it's a mixture of excreta. So it's
pee and poop come out the same place.
Oh, okay.
We don't have two separate birds. Don't have two separate places
Oh,
Okay.
for it to
interesting.
come out.
Okay.
So it is liquidy, but there are colored brownish things in it too, the poop part. And birds don't urinate urea the way mammals do. So they turn it into uric acid or guanine, and that's why it's white.
Oh.
And then it gets excreted that way.
Okay.
So, and it's not always as liquidy as it is sometimes, except I learned a couple days ago that ostriches do it differently.
Mm-hmm.
They still have only one exit point, but they pee before they poop.
Oh.
Oh.
General
Interesting.
Ladylike.
and it's not square.
It's not square. Wait, so is it Shannon, you were saying, is it the guanine? That's something that makes it white?
Yeah.
Okay,
So that's a
interesting.
different form of excreting nitrogenous waste.
Oh, okay.
And birds do it differently than humans do.
Okay.
But just like us, you are what you eat. And so, for instance, if you ever come out in your car in the fall and the robins have been around eating fruit, you'll
yes.
be able to clearly see that they've been eating fruit.
Yeah.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yeah.
We've seen that firsthand.
Yeah.
Yeah.
All right. Well, thanks for the question, Rob. And I hope you got the answer right, Rob.
Yeah, but I still don't think the explanation is clear.
About the wombat?
Yeah, why it's square? There's no
You need to
no
go look.
logical.
You're not basing that on the scientific evidence that these people published in 2021. It got a lot of press at the time. That's your fault.
Was the title "Why Is Poop Square"?
Yes.
Okay.
Do you guys remember that children's book, Everyone Poops?
Oh yeah.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah.
That
I
was
wonder if wombats were in that now that I think about it.
No, I think they could add another chapter.
Yeah, yeah.
Kids would love it.
Yeah, yeah.
all living things eat, so everyone poops.
I love that book.
That was a favorite. Sorry, Pete.
All right. Well, John, you want to close it out?
Yeah, let's see. Magpies, definitely symbol of the West. They should be a state bird for somebody, and they aren't. So we need to work on Colorado, I think.
Yes.
Yeah, yeah.
Yes.
Oh, let's get somebody on that.
Yes.
And okay, I'm going backwards. Apparently I just looked at my notes, there's an advantage to pooping in squares for them, which is that it doesn't roll, and they mark their territories with poop.
Oh,
Oh.
smart.
All right,
and
so
they,
that's
and they, they
that
have
I'm
rocky
okay with.
environments
Yeah.
in the poop.
John buys
I'm okay
that.
with
yeah.
there being like a series of wombats out there that figured out how to make square poop and suddenly had better defended territories. That's
Okay.
I'm buying that.
It's feasible. Yes.
Okay, there you go.
Thanks, everyone, for listening. We appreciate it. Thanks to Daniel, our audio engineer, as well as Earhole Studios in Chicago for helping us record. You all are the best. If you have a question for us, you can reach us at podcast.birdsofafeather@gmail.com. All right. See you all next week. We love you all. Thanks.